Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight at CC Franchine. We're very glad to have you tonight to this very exclusive event. I'm Alexander, the Operation Manager for CCI Shanghai branch. A few words just before starting our event tonight. CCI has a few committees dedicated to a specific position, for example, HRD, CFOs, or as tonight, decision maker on ITs. Tonight, we wanted to bring some innovation in the format of the event and propose new formats in order to raise the attention and awareness on some very specific and important topic, such as Green IT tonight. So feel free to interact during the Q&A with our speakers. We want to raise the debates and discussions. Tonight, the roundtable will be animated by the two coordinators of the DSC committee, Florian Borivant from Orange and Jean-Luc Fay from Michelin. And for the panel discussion, I will have the pleasure to have tonight Stéphane Monsalier from System Motion, Augusta Trong from Michelin, Gong Yong from Arkema, and finally, Philippe Aubry from Aquila. They are going to start with a 5-minute presentation about how they implement Green IT in their companies. So you can have better ideas for each of them and then raise your question after that. Without further wait, I give the mic to Gong Yong for the first part. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexander. So my name is Chinese name is Gong Yong, then English name is Yong Gong. Yeah. I'm the CIO for Greater China in Arkema. So the CIO stands for Korea is over. Yeah. So Chief Information Officer. Yeah. So we are a high performance material company, actually a chemical company. Yeah. So we had office in Paris. Yeah. And in China, we had office in Shanghai. So we have something like 10 to 12 billion euro turnover, yearly turnover in between. Then in China, we have 3,000 employees, then around like 10 plants in around. So our largest manufacturing site was in Changshu. So we have a site there. Maybe you have 6 to 7 plants inside and 1,000 employees as such. Yeah. So as a chemical company by nature, so sustainability, that's something like a blood for years. Yeah. It's not something like new for us. Say, hey, you use terms say sustainability or CSR or ESG as such, right? Because for some companies like the service company, then it's something like add on, right? But for us, if you don't do that, then you will have a penalty there. Say the government will come in and say, hey, you pay the bill as such. Yeah. Then for us, we actually in our company for IT, when we say the sustainability, we put green IT and IT for green. So two terms. So green IT is something like you wear a green hat, right? So make ourselves green. Then IT for green, so we help the customers. Our customer is our business green as such, right? For example, let's say if we want to be like carbon neutral before 2050, or let's say, hey, if we want to reduce the carbon for emission for scope 1, scope 2, then that's something we are helping our business to achieve the goals. For sure, we have our own thing. Then maybe let me quickly introduce. So for green IT, for sure, something we were doing, say, hey, we should quantify. So what's happening in our domain, for example, what's the carbon emission for the equipment inside our computer room and outside our computer room, I mean, those PCs as such, right? Then the other thing was how we quantify the carbon emission for our office and also for our equipment, I mean, on the manufacturing sites as such. Then let's see how we can maybe reduce on that. Yeah. So in short, so a lot of things are working on in our company. Then we will share more later on.
Hello all. So good evening all, I'm Augusta. So I'm from the Michelin. In fact, our scope is for the Asia Pacific. So it is inside of the IT department. So you can see it's very few females in the IT department be able to in charge of the larger scope. So our Asia Michelin IT is in charge of all the Asia country. Including China, Thailand, Japan, and other Australian country as well. So for us is that it's glad to share the topic of green IT. It's because we are IT department inside of the company. So we are more utilize the technologies from the other IT company. So it's good to share with you how we are able to tell the company for the sustainability and the social responsible for the green, friendly for the planet, how IT is able to answer the questions to them. So that's why today I will more share the practical things, how we are adapted this approach in the company for IT. Okay. So I prepared a very two simple slides to share with you how we do. So you can see, first of all, now the people is wearing that digital is not something virtual. It is in the end, it is linked with the physical things. So physical things is talking about the CO2 emission, as you know. So the step-by-step approach we try to say is we need to be a little bit humble. So although we are doing a lot for green IT in the past, but we still need to learn a lot in order to be more precise what we are doing. So the first phase, we always think we need to do the more study. Study means that we can learn from our group. So we are a group organization. Group already have some practice we are able to use. Secondary is we do have a lot of the IT partner. So the partner themselves, they are studied the green or the friendly for the planet for quite long. So we need to learn from them for their technologies, which technology or which life cycles is be able to answer the green IT. For example, in the Michelin side, we are trying to refresh all the devices by the cycle. Every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we'll refresh everything. So for the people think we just do the refresh, but in fact, it is a manufacturing products. So with the new life cycle of the manufacturing products, they have a better computing performance. So that's ways we have less energy consumption from the devices than the previous and with the better performance. So this kind of the figure we can learn from the partner and we can calculate from the partner information. And we are using cloud technology as well. So cloud partner are well managing the data center with the less energy consumption. So this is something we try to understand from the external to help us to quantify the things we are doing for internal. And the things we do is that data is important to show what is the green IT figure. So we do have a strong database collecting all the IT facility, IT infrastructure service applications. So we are now studying with the external tools help us to generate the figure on top. So we are willing to share all the figures to all the countries, IT and even external of the IT for show back to the IT green figure. The good tool will help us to measure the progress we will do. So we are doing now the quantified scope means we are a global organization and Asia is one of the region compared to the group. So we need to tell people what we will measure for the green IT figures. Some is linked with the infrastructure service, some is linked with the application. So people is thinking that maybe it is more infrastructure related, but it is not that correct. Application also are using the computer things in our machine. So it's important for computer application side. For example, they do more design for the echo basis. So they do not should not think it is virtual. Once they design the architecture, it's landing to the physical devices, and they need to considerations how they can design the best performance applications with the less consumption on the energy part as well. So we are discussing by each teams one by one, try to nominate some of the opportunities we can put in the practical ways for measure. For examples, we do have a lot of the big application and with many of the batch jobs is running. So with our company is quite long, some application is using more than 10 years or 20 years. And we can see that after a couple of years, nobody is cleaning up with the batch jobs, which is taking the computer consumption, which is not that good enough. And with this green approach, in fact, we can push them to think of the cleanup on the things they are using. For infrastructure is also same to link with the Office, new way of working Office, we are also thinking, for example, it's not necessary to provide IP phone anymore for each desk because we have the M365 tooling already. Everybody is using the Teams with meeting and a chat. Phone become older traditions. So with the renovation of each of the office, we remove all the unnecessary phones. That's a big savings for the energies. People might be not aware of that. So the last part we are thinking is green IT is not only for IT ourselves, it is for the user as well. So user is using our devices as for the IT, for example, the PC and the Office devices as well. It is important to share with users when their behaviors on the computing, what will link with the or impact the green IT, so they can support us to think how we can saving the energies. For example, we are trying to measure the PC performance by some intelligence tools remotely, be able to collect the performance data, and we are able to analyze on the back end. Then we decided how we manage the PC refresh cycles. So this part is also could engage the users to help us to do that. So, so as I said, we are the IT department inside of the company. I don't talk too many technology things, but just to share in the IT department how we can practically landing for the approach. So where are we? So in fact, we seriously started the green IT from last year. So it is a new topic for us. Also, we did a lot for the obsolescence upgrading. We did many times in the past years, but it will be better to formalize the green IT activities for all. So for examples, yes, we are discussing with our group teams to get some packages, for example, the data, the calculation ways, and we are interviewed with the partner, as I mentioned, the external partner as well. So we talk with our cloud provider, talk with the Capgemini, the Microsoft, and the other partners who is able to give us more idea how is the green IT can apply in our company. So I mentioned that user awareness for the green IT is also important. So we do the one round of the questionnaires for everybody, ask them all the questions linked with this topic. So with the first round of the survey result, we can see even people feel it's necessary to do, but they don't really know what does mean for the green IT. So this is something we try to sense the user levels of the awareness for the green IT part. And then we are discussing with each teams, try to nominate the case, be able to practically applying, and with the successful of the cases, we can apply to other teams as well. So that's basically the things share with you for how we do that in the inside of the IT.
This way. Okay. My name is Philippe, Philippe Aubry. I have a Chinese name, but I don't know how to pronounce. I have a long story in the IT because before I decided to come to China, I was managing a big IT department in France and for sure in Europe. And for sure, the question of green IT was always at the center of what we were doing. I will say since 20 years. It's not a big topic. It's not a new topic, I will say, the question of green IT. And but now, obviously, we are on the top priority for every company. And more than the green IT, I love the expression when we say IT for green. So today I'm managing a company named Aquila. Aquila is a startup. And this startup, the purpose of this startup is not directly dedicated for IT. We are just supporting and helping our client and driving the sustainability journey of our client with a strong focus on what we call the decarbonization. And we believe on what we call digitalize to decarbonize. Why we speak about digitalization? It has been already mentioned before, because the digitalization is a way to reveal and to understand the reality. we said that we don't know what we don't know. And because we don't know what we don't know, we cannot improve what we don't know. And the way to reveal the reality will be done by the digitalization. Is what we do today for our client. And at the center of what we have developed, we have this concept of digital twin. And the purpose of digital twin is driven by efficiency. For sure, at the center, we have the question of energy efficiency. But if we look at the global picture of a company, energy is one part. Why companies are so focused for the energy? Because it's for sure, it's a big part of the carbon which are generated by the company, but it's also the question of the cost, because if you decrease the energy consumption, you decrease the cost. And it's also a leverage to do what? Just to have the return of investment and to have the capability to invest on new technology to decarbonize the business. But it's not the only part. It's also a question of efficiency for the team. It's also the question of efficiency of the infrastructure, efficiency of the different equipment. And at the end, it's also the efficiency of the people. Is what we have developed within our platform and what we develop, leveraging the data, leveraging the digital twin. We start the journey by the digitalization and we decline by application. To decline this application at a different level of the organization of the company. Because the question of decarbonization, the question of ESG is not the question only of the top management. It must be declined at a different level. And we say it from the boiler room, meaning the workers, to the boardroom. And when we drive this kind of project, and I love what has been explained by my friend today, is not a question of IT deployment of solution. It's also more a question of governance and vision from the enterprise. And at the end, IT for green is for us also the question of the convergence between what we call IT and what we call OT. IT for information technology, OT for operational technology. If we look at the operational technology, you will see that most of the enterprise are not at all digitalized. Everything is paper-based. And speaking about that, we speak about digital transformation, and the contribution from IT is huge according to their experience and the technology they have in their hands. And it's what we do when we deploy such technology. It's not only a question of software, it's also a question of change with a strong contribution of the IT. This way. And just to finish with this slide, it's also a question of journey. Nothing is magic. But based on the digitalization, we will reveal the reality and we will do what we call visualization. And based on the visualization, we can define the different scenario of optimization and we will drive the journey. And the backbone of this journey will be the digitalization. And we have different solutions. When we say optimization, we just take the control of an infrastructure, we take the control of the asset, of the building, of the different utilities to make it more efficient, to reduce the load, to reduce the energy consumption. And we can have very impressive results by that, driven by data, driven by artificial intelligence. But it's just a small portion of the journey. More or less, we said that it can contribute between 15 to 20% of the overall journey to the carbon neutrality. And step by step, based on this data, you will drive some what we call retrofit. Retrofit, we say shallow, deep retrofit, meaning we can change some machine, we can change some material, we can change some facade, we can change the way the equipment have been installed, etc., etc. But we have also the question to prioritize our investment. And to prioritize our investment, we do simulation by the digitalization to drive the roadmap. And at the end, the digitalization as a backbone will be also the way to challenge what we promise, what we define as the digital, and what we execute at the end, and to evaluate the gap and to take the necessary action to converge. That's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philippe. So my name is Stefan. I'm the CEO and founder of System in Motion. So I come at these topics from a small and medium enterprise point of view. And being in the service industry, so my company is a IT service industry. I asked myself, so I don't have factories, I don't produce tires, I don't have like all these facilities. So what is my carbon footprint? We don't know what we don't know, but I don't like when I don't know. So why should an IT company care about carbon footprint and sustainability? But the big guys, they care. That's the first thing. So Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Meta, they all working on it. So there must be a reason for them to look at it. So that's the official reason, and that's the reason I dare to put on the slides. But the real reason is what one of our customers asked us the question. So what's the carbon footprint of your employees? You know, if you divide it by number of employees, what is it? And we don't have the answer. That was not a big issue. We still get to work with them, but that was part of their procurement process. So that got me to think, okay, step one, they're asking the question. Step two, they're going to make the question mandatory. So I better answer. Step three, they maybe will go with, because I'm part of their scope 3, you know, I'm part of their suppliers. So they need to reduce scope 1, scope 2, the internal one, but they also need to reduce it. So maybe down the road, if we don't have the answer or we don't have a good answer, they may go with another supplier who has a lower carbon footprint because they have to reduce their scope 3. So that's why in 2022, so I'm happy to start before Michelin. In 2022, I got a very smart intern and I asked her, so how do we do? So she started to do some research and she came out with something very simple that is suitable for a small company. So how do you compute carbon footprint? You know, it's actually very simple. You have a metric and you have what is called an emission factor, and that gives you your carbon footprint. So here I put some of the tables that my intern came out with. So for example, when you buy hardware, the metric is units. So how many laptops you have, and then what is the emission factor of a single laptop? So when you manufacture a laptop, you have all the components, you have everything that needs to be extracted from the mine and then carried out to a factory, blah, blah, blah. So manufacturing a single laptop has a carbon footprint. That is the emission factor of a laptop. So we got data outside of China and we thought, okay, that's probably a good estimate. For cloud, in 2022, there were no emission factor for any provider in China. Impossible to find. We went all the way to the source. But I'm happy to give you an update. Just today, I double check on Aliwin and I got my emission factor from what I'm using inside Aliwin. But that was only 2 years ago. This is very, very recent. So that whole wave, and you probably put pressure on them and you maybe put pressure on them, but I couldn't put any pressure on them, right? All right. So that's for hardware, et cetera, et cetera. For commuting, because we have employees and because 2022, we had COVID and they were working from home. So we wanted to see the impact. Are they coming from home? Are they driving their own car? Are they taking the metro? Are they taking bicycles? So then that is also part of our carbon emission, you know. And finally, business trip. At that time, we are not traveling, no business trip. And finally, the biggest one, the electricity. So electricity, whenever you have an electricity bill, that electricity bill is in kilowatt hour. And then you need to find the emission factor of the kilowatt hour. At that time, we found numbers that were called East China. So China Grid, they publish numbers that are East China. It's a very big region. But most likely, if you're in Shanghai or if you're in Nanjing or if you're in, Hangzhou, there are probably different numbers because they are based on what is called the energy mixed. So in 1 kilowatt hour, how much is coming from, in average, how much is coming from nuclear plant, how much is coming from coal, how much is coming from renewable energy. All right. So before doing all that, I informed myself and I read some articles from the West, and they were telling me that the emission factor of the hardware throughout the life cycle of the hardware is usually higher than the electricity. So in other words, when you buy an iPhone, you're paying a very, very steep carbon emission bill. Actually, this iPhone has a very high one. And if you keep it for a year and a half, I guess, in China, all the electricity that you use to charge that phone is way lower. So my surprise was that it was completely the opposite. So that big thing in orange, that's electricity. All right. So in 2022, as a company, so it's not only considering IT, because in that electricity bill that I receive from my building, there is the electricity that we keep to run our computers, to charge the phone, etc. But there's also the electricity for the lighting, and there's also the electricity, a part of the electricity for the lift. Yeah. So that was a big surprise for us. So now, when you have a carbon emission like this, what do? Well, you change office, right? You move to another office. And you say, okay, I need to find an office that has better, better efficiency, that maybe the heating is better, maybe the HVAC is better. But when you go and you look for an office, they don't give you the carbon footprint of the office, right? You may ask for the electricity bill. So I went to ask my good friend Philippe, and I said, Philippe, what's the average kilowatt hour per square meter in Shanghai? And Philippe's answer was like, I don't know. And then I asked my guy over there, and then I don't know. We also couldn't find those numbers. So maybe you have them today? No, still not? Yeah. So I couldn't move. So what I did, I moved in the same building and I cut the space by half. So hopefully I can update that, and we can have another conference, and I can give you the updated one with half the office. Now that I have my cloud numbers, maybe I'm going to discover that they are way higher than what we thought, because at that time we value them for 0, which is a big bias. Because when you put anything valuable 0 there, you're making different decisions. And there are a lot of decisions you're making when you compute your carbon footprint. And every single decision that you make in what you account for, what you don't account for, has a big influence on your overall decision at the end to reduce your carbon emission. So that's where we are. So that's where we were 2 years ago. I don't have much time before the summer, but I think before the end of the year, I will go and update these figures and see the impact. I didn't get my new electricity bill for the new office anyway, and I just got the numbers from Aliwin. So see you in a couple of months, and I'll give you the updated one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, and thank you to the speakers. We can applaud them once again for their good contributions. We are moving to Q&A session. We will ask a lot of questions with Jean-Luc. Of course, we welcome everyone to have any question to also ask question. Please just raise your hand, and you will be the next to ask your question. Maybe let me start first, and I will ask the first question to Augusta from Michelin. So the first question to set up a bit the environment will be, at Michelin, at which step do you think you are in terms of green IT or IT for green? And what will be the next steps in terms of vision, strategy, or maybe implementation?
Understood. So my answer is, as I shared with you, we have step-by-step approach. The first step we are doing now is to accurate the data, show back to the users and by application. It is very important that you show something visualized to the people. Otherwise, they think it's quite far away from them. So we already start to do the, Stephen already mentioned that calculation, the things exactly put in the PPT from the vendor side. We are doing something, for example, we are showing the per users, how many CO2 emissions you consumed. So we had some difficulty, like one user supposed to have one PC, but some of the users, they have multiple PC, one by another one by different reason. And when you ask them to give us back, they always have the reason. But it's interesting that if you show them how many things you are consumed to damage the planet, they feel it is serious. So it's very interesting figures. We are trying to do something to show back to users and tell them the story, right? Second part for the application show back the same. We have many applications because the historical of the reason. Some applications not necessarily significant return anymore, but it is sitting on our computers for quite long and consume a lot of things. So we do have show back to the application to the business, like the cost. And then some feelings from the businesses, we are okay, we are rich, we are able to use this application for long, even it is not that useful. But again, same feeling as user, if you show them how much damage you are caused for the planet, they will react, they will rethink of it. So that's why I answer the first things is it's very important we have the data and we're able to show back the figures to the user by application by user. So thanks for all the data you shared. That's exactly we are collecting from our partner. So that was my answer.
And actually, I understand very well what Augusta says because my team is part of those teams that have multiple contributors. And I often go to her and I say, we need more powerful pieces.
No.
So it's a long story. So my second question would be to Philippe. And Philippe, actually, the question is, in your view, which technology and approach can contribute to for a greener IT, and what are the main challenges to address?
It's a too complicated question for me.
And if I may, I will go a little bit further because you talked about OT, and I have a background in OT. How is the conversions of OT towards IT impacting when it comes to having a greener IT?
Okay. First, for the first part of the question, I will say that we do not have the pretension over all this question of green IT. We are just on the part of the game. And for us, part of the game is what I call the infrastructure, the building. And just by experience, we had also some client and some experience and project on what we call the question of the data center. And speaking of data center, if we have some question to the public, they have some belief which is not reflect exactly the reality of the data center. If you look at the energy consumption of the overall data center in the planet, it's almost 1%, which is not so high. In US, it's 1.6%, also not so high. The interesting point when we look at that, when we speak about efficiency, is the fact that if we increase the data flow by 100, almost as an average, and between 2015 and 2018, it was the case, 100 times the amount of data exchange, which is a metric, you only increase the energy by 15%. We just demonstrate that we have some solution to optimize the energy consumption, even we increase the demand and the needs. We reduce also the energy consumption on some basic rule, which is a critical size. For instance, I was an IT guy. I had to manage a battle with my IT team just to say we need to externalize because our providers are better than us. We need to leverage the professionalism of a big player, providing the right infrastructure with the right level of efficiency. And today, the challenge, it's more the question of compliance. Because we have the government policies, not at the same level of the different countries. We have this question of, we have a very simple indicator, for instance, which is PUE. I do believe you know this kind of things. It's power usage efficiency. It's a ratio between the total energy consumed by the data center by the energy consumed by the IT. So the difference is all the infrastructure. And this ratio needs to be very close to 1, for sure. And now, if you are not complying with the regional rules, government rule on the district or the region, even in China, you have some penalty. And at the end, it's a question of eligibility on the market, because the data center and the provider of data center is also part of the scope 3 of the overall picture of the carbon emission. So regulation and compliancy and penalty, financial penalties, in fact, will help us to reach this question of the carbon neutrality and the energy efficiency. And for us, as a provider of technology to help our client, it's a leverage. And we are looking for that, and we help, for instance, the Chinese government to understand what we are doing in other countries, more mature, like US, like France. And I would like to react on what Stefan said before when we speak about data. I don't believe so much on what has been done by Stefan when he say, I have my footprint, I have my nice PowerPoint, because it's just a photography, I will say, just a snapshot. We believe on the real-time monitoring, because if you have real-time data, we can define what is real-time. It's not at the second, it can be at the minute, it can be at the day. You can react and take decision. If you are just a snapshot, you look at the past, it's too late. That's typically what we want to do with digitalization and technology. And coming back to the, I know, but I have a limited time. Just to react, I already mentioned this question of OT, IT. You speak about facilities, asset, building. My main clients are more on the OT side. So it's rely more on what we call the build industry. When we look at the data center, even now we make huge progress with the question of modularity. At the end, it's a building, and we need to operate this building. It's the same way we operate an office, we operate a manufacturing plant, etc., etc. So our clients are the facility management operator, the team. Related to the build industry. If you look at the build industry, you will discover that since 100 years, we did not have any significant improvement of the productivity compared to the other industry. Why? Because they are not at all digitalized. They are totally organized in silo. And we look at the operator of the building, we just have to look around you on your company, you will see what? You will see best case Excel, which is just an electronic version of the paper. Worst case, you will see paper. And most of the case is paper-based. So for me, the convergence of OT and IT, it is something we push today, but the IT contribute a lot. And it's also the guarantee that we will secure the question of the data management, the question of cybersecurity, and to ensure this compliance against the cybersecurity and the IT security as a general standpoint.
Thank you. Thank you. Stefan, you mentioned the importance of Scope 3, and I was very impressed by your PowerPoint. So I would like to get your sense and your opinion, I would say your vision about the importance of carbon neutrality for IT, whether it's something that is achievable and why we should pursue that goal.
So first, I'd like to reply to Philip first. So I use Excel because I cannot afford your software. And again, I mean, that screenshot is the first step that I think every company should take, and just have the big numbers there and see what we're talking about and see that it makes sense and have that common sense. Then yes, down the road, of course, there are more refinements and more steps. Yeah. 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 Okay. So I think carbon neutrality, there's only one thing worse than carbon neutrality, it's carbon negativity. So there was an announcement by Microsoft that their data center are going to be carbon negative. Let's imagine that's the case. Let's imagine they make a claim that my data center is carbon negative. What does it mean? It means the more I buy from Microsoft, the more I get carbon credits. And I think it's super dangerous. Why? Because we're all talking carbon footprints and we all measure in tons of carbon emission, but it's only part of the story. It's like kind of that universal sustainability currency that everybody's talking about, but that hides the reality of what's happening behind, which is that we need to extract those raw materials and there's not an infinite supply. So claiming that a data center is carbon neutral or carbon negative, that means go and buy more from me, which is, again, only part of the equation. So I think there needs to be a carbon impact. Going all the way to carbon neutrality is just a way to pat us in the back and say, we're super happy, we're super good, we do it in Excel or whatever software, whatever way we use to compute it, we pat ourselves in the back, and we've survived, but we're still killing the planet down the road. So I think carbon neutrality, and I know I'm probably the only one, would be a bad thing.
So for sure, we need to reduce our consumption, maybe size better. But I personally think still large companies, they should have some large KPIs to try to control it, because if you're a small company, of course, you can do your overall consumption. But for large company, we need to reduce by which department is leading one by one, which country. So maybe the next question for Yonggong, for Arkema, could be also a personal question from a leader of Arkema. Do you have a KPI on green IT or ESG for green? And how do you lead these KPIs in your department if you have some?
Yeah, sure. I think my friends, they all talk about green IT a lot. Then maybe I can talk something like IT for green, or like the KPIs, and giving some highlights with the real stories as such. So it's not an easy job if you go to the day-to-day kind of work. So someone maybe was already saying ESG is dead, because you don't want put a lot of money on ESG with no extra output. I mean, that's the basic mind for all the CFOs, even my CFO as such, right? So for our COO level, do they have enough projects? Say, hey, they have 6 months ROI. So why they put another project with no ROI? Let's say if you just want to do a project to save carbon emission, but there's no real output. Okay, so back to the KPI. So for us, really you need to compete for the funding. Even if you look at our annual report, say Arkema, you have let's say the EBITDA rate even above 15%, but still you need to compete for the funding. Yeah, so it's not an easy job, because as said, you have other projects, you really have 6 months ROI. Then give you some real example, then maybe you can put in your day-to-day kind of work. You all heard something say, hey, do right things right, right? So for us as a chemical manufacturer, do right things really how you have the receipt, then how you do the manufacturing process. So let's say the process control, right? So if you don't do the process control well, so you may have a lot of people, they were very senior in the plant, say they were 50 years plus in terms of the age, right? They know how to control the device, but they manage by experience. So there will be a lot of variance. If there's a variance, you will have a waste of energy, right? Then in our industry, you have a software called APC, Advanced Process Control. Then you can control the process. I will not say the episode number you put there as the funding requirement. So for example, so we have a real-time story, say in a plant in Changshu. You may put like €3 there, right? Then the initial business case from our plant GM, the general manager, say, hey, so with his very good kind of experience, so if we put the software there, it's an OT software, then we can save €1 per year. So the ROI is 3 years. So 3 years, you get your money back. Then let's do the work. Then he asked a lot of his engineers to put their knowledge inside the software. Then the good thing was, yeah. So the real result, the real conclusion was, he put like €3 there, but 3 years, he got €10 back. So the first key takeaway was really say, hey, how from the do right thing side, you can find a good business case for that. For sure, another key takeaway is in our plants, you really need something like not say 3 years ROI, only 2 years ROI project you can get approval. Otherwise, it's too difficult. Then the other thing was for sure do things right. So I can give another story. So as a plant by nature, you buy energy. not say buy green energy, but you need to buy steam, you need to buy electronic, and also you need to buy like gas, right? So it's not that easy job to say, hey, you know all the energy you used. So if you visit our Changshu plant, there's a large screen there. Each digital plant, you have a large screen there saying, hey, what's the total energy we use in that plant? However, the simulation is not that close to the real energy use. But as my friend mentioned, you first have the data, then you can do the savings. If you don't have a correct data, you cannot do the savings. And it's not also not an easy job. As Philip mentioned, if you put the data from OT, the operation technology, into IT world, then you visualize with Power BI or whatever. It's not an easy job. Yeah. Akila's that's my silk story. Yeah. Then so we build a big case, say, hey, with all the experience from all our plant GMs, because as mentioned, we have like 10 plants, then you have 10 general managers as such, a lot of general managers. Then the easy job was say, hey, if we put the energy usage there, and you sort by the usage, or say you sort by the waste of the energy used, then the bad guy will be picked up, right? Then the GM, yeah, maybe I should not be the bad guy. So we put like 1% per consumption saving as the target. Then we have the business case approved. Then we can put the IT kind of system there to take the energy out of OT and put into IT, and then visualize by Power BI. Then you sort by the plants or the waste as such. Then that really achieve the 1% kind of energy saving. So which is to say, from do things right perspective, you can also do something to see how you can save energy. And then you can maybe help on the carbon footprint, or say the carbon neutral kind of perspective. So I talked like 2 use cases in the plant, then maybe we talk about the office building. Yeah, I should mention the supply name. Yeah. But we do have a good kind of supply, right? Managing the office power consumption. Office consumption mainly it's lighting and also the air conditioning, but air conditioning was the key actually, because I was paying my apartment, my apartment bill, right? So it's a lot actually. Also for the office. And it's also not an easy job, right? For sure, we got another use case. It's also within 3 years ROI. Say, hey, we have a supply. Then he came in and promised, say, hey, you can maybe use something like 17% less power consumption by better control your air conditioning. Because sometimes you have overheat, right? So sometimes it's too cool. For example, in our head office in Lyon, I mean, IT, our head office was in Lyon, then they were only allowed to open air conditioning after, let's say, June. Otherwise, you can use that to save energy as such. Yeah. In France, okay. Okay, everywhere. Then the thing was, it's also very hard to prove, because my supplier was saying I was using AI, a lot of algorithm in behind to control, and we visit his office to physically have the feeling, right? So what's happening there? For sure, we didn't check the code, but I think there's a magic there, right? Because my major was computer science, so there should be a control there. But it's also very hard to compare, because you know, you have 23, you have 22, 21. Then year 21 was very special year. 22 was also a special year. Yeah, people like me in Shanghai, you got locked down. If you lock down, then there's no energy consumption in your office. Then you cannot compare apple to apple between 22 to 23 as such, right? Then we also have very smart mechanical engineers. And our mechanical engineers, hey, we can also do the job for the supply. I can just shut down the air condition. Then we just have the energy saving. We should not pay the money to my supplier as such. So you have a lot of kind of operation kind of discussion there. But finally, I think we make the story, right? So we achieved the goal for 17% saving. However, we still need to check for this year. So the summer is coming, and let's see what will happen there. Because on the other side, you still have the users, the employee coming in, say, hey, I feel too hot. Yeah, it's very difficult. This part of the room and that part of the room, you always have different temperature as such. But anyway, what I'm trying to say was the key takeaway for this story is really you need to always revisit your business case to make sure you achieve the goal, not just like get the funding, put the system there, done. You have to revisit the business story. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Quickly.
No. 1 minute. I'm very happy that you mentioned that, and you mentioned that one topic which is a huge challenge for us, which is what we call the baseline. Do we compare apple to apple? My personal conviction is not the opinion of all my team, because it's a big challenge. We will never success. It is not possible. We just have to look what happened this weekend or yesterday in Dubai. Climate change. Because the energy consumption is mainly driven by the question of climate when we speak about air conditioning, for instance. So comparing 2024 to 2023, 2022, we never converge. I have another idea. It's a long way to develop, and we are working on that today. We need to simulate. We need to use the technology to calculate the energy as it should be without optimization. And we have a result. And we can compare with the real consumption. Is what we are working to leverage the technology, because converging on this kind of topic, which is a big topic, because we need to evaluate the performance, we never success a very acceptable solution, I would say. Just compromise.
Thank you, Philippe. From the public, any question? Paul, Antoine? The question is for?
Maybe I try to answer from my side as an IT department for the company. So you talk about the benchmark for the carbon footprint. The problem is that the carbon footprint is the result for everything. So it's coming from the solution, right? So normally we are benchmark with the marketing. What is the service? What is the solution we are providing? So it's not directly benchmarked what is the CO2 emissions we are providing. So that's some different. And secondary, I think it is the maturity for the measurement. So far, every company, as Stephanie just said, Ali Yun, just to be able to tell us the figure. So I don't think that is the good maturity enough. We're able to compare to each other without a figure yet. So some companies well managing the inventory by all the data. Some companies is still on the way for the inventory even cleanup. So that's why I said if we need to benchmark, we may starting from the solution-wise, service-wise, and we may need to think of each company to provide good data. And then later on, of course, we can do some comparison. So that is the current things in my mind.
I think like many other things, we compete against ourselves. So Philippe was talking about the baseline. So what can we do? What can we do to be better next year than we are this year? because I'm convinced that down the road, whatever constraint the government is going to put on companies here and everywhere in the world is going to come down from company to supplier to supplier to supplier. And our customers are going to put pressure on us to reduce up to the point where we then compete with our competitors. They say, oh, you're the same price as that guy, but that guy has a lower carbon footprint. So I'm going to work with that guy because my boss has a KPI to reduce the carbon footprint. So by switching supplier, I can do it like this. And even that guy is cheating on his numbers, I can't control that, and I can't challenge that. So I think in an industry, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years down the road, industry by industry, with competitors, we'll have to compete on that, and that's going to be a criteria for procurement. So we better be ready to compete against them ourselves and just be better and better and better, and at least have ideas of what is our next step. Because when you run out of ideas.
I have two comments on what you say, two experience. The first one is, I think, speaking about KPI metrics, the first step for an enterprise is to challenge itself. Why I say that? Because I said we are blind. Most of the time we are blind. We don't have data. I have a lot of experience with some project. When we show to the client a map with a different location, they can compare. They can have some very simple KPI, and they can have some KPI with some comparable. They say, wow, because we can compare apple to apple with a KPI and different metrics or inside the same enterprise on different location in a country in the world. That's the first comment. The second one, I'm just showing an experience that we have in US. We develop our product also for US, and we have started some project in New York. Why we have started project in New York? Because if we look at New York, probably 85% of the carbon are coming from the building. There is 80,000 buildings in New York. And if you have the chance to go to New York, you will see that buildings are so old, are so not efficient, etc., etc. And the government takes the decision to oblige the property owner to do something. And the rule is very simple. First rule, you need to be transparent. So meaning that you need to report on a regular basis your energy consumption. That's the first step. If you do not do that, you are punished. Second rule, you need to show the roadmap of what you want to achieve in terms of energy reduction and the different actions to manage, and you need to report. And on top of that, each building has an identity card with the performance of the building, which is updated on a regular basis. And more than that, they have the mention of the punishment, the level of punishment, how many dollars they will have to pay if they do not achieve their target and if they do not do something. It's also a question of communication to do not be, as I said at the beginning, eligible on the market. If you have to make a choice for your building, you will choose the building the most efficient because you will reduce your cost and you will reduce your carbon emission.
Everyone answer your question. Next is
Your
me.
turn.
I think you have two questions. For the first one, so in the mission vision of our company, it's already mentioned there. So we try to be an innovative and also sustainable kind of company and providing sustainable kind of new material as such, right? And if you download our annual report, so we are saying before 2050, we should be carbon zero, and before 2035, we will reduce something like 40% of scope 1, scope 2, and another 40% for scope 3 as such. And for chemical company, so we have an association, for example, Covestro, BASF, Arkema, we are all there to discuss how you can achieve the goal as such, right? And a small maybe sharing with them, in our industry, it's also special. You have thousands of regulations, not just 2 regulations, you have thousands of regulations. We use RPA to find the new regulations everywhere. Use RPA to find the new regulations. Maybe today there's a new regulation in Jiangsu province, tomorrow in Beijing city, next day in Vietnam. So you have too many regulations. So one problem for us right now in China is we buy green energy, by the green energy company supply was not recognized by EU. Then our corporate say, hey, you are not buying green energy, but we are buying green energy.
Thank you very much. Other questions? One here.
I think because in Licheng we are quite globalized. So once we have the initiatives, we are applying everywhere. So it's quite aligned that each country should do the similar thing. But since you talk about the country, one fact is we already discussed with group. We want to show the carbon nutrition per country. And then they consider, okay, that's a little bit complex because down to each of the country, because the local energy consumption cost could be very, very different. So it's very complex way we are calculating per country. So which means in the end, with the same solutions landing to each country, the carbon emissions could be different. And then how we drive the actions per countries could be different. So to convince the user or convince each country to do this, it's not a topic for us. It's just the action. We need to process the actions helping on that particular countries based on our data could be a challenges we are thinking.
Yeah, you asked me, so for Arkema is a global company, right? So I can share maybe one thing. So in short, the recognition of sustainability in China was not that like in EU, because the EU you have maybe more advanced regulation. So giving a real life example, so we have a plant in Yunnan, 1 BU. Yeah. So the general manager was saying, hey, Yong, I put extra money there for sustainability kind of element there, maybe by green energy or whatever, or putting a high standard of the quality of her product. However, my customer will not buy that, will not pay for that. Only my French head office was paid, asking for that. So you see what I'm saying? So maybe you are paying extra money right now for achieving sustainable goal, but your customer will not pay in China compared to maybe Europe as such, right? And inside the company, I see the difference was really now a lot of global companies, you have local localization. So for example, I was a successor for a French person who was the previous CIO for Arkema in Asia Pacific. Yeah. Then Chinese people by nature, they don't speak good English as such. For sure, they may not speak good French. Then when you're asking for documents, say, hey, we have a funding called Aki Energy. Say, hey, I ask for funding. Then this is my business case. Say, normally don't write a good like business case. So they have like less funding. So that's something like inside the company. Yeah, I'm not sure that answer your question. Yeah.
Right, going on. Nicolas, thank you for all the presentation. Very interesting. I have a general question. Did you have to pay? Did you ever have to face a decision where you had to pay significantly more for something that was greener? We talked about carbon emission, but it's not just that. It could be also like soil impact and so on. When you have to face this kind of decision, how you convince your organization that they should go for the greener solutions? Maybe you're more exposed to this.
The only way to success is to start by the top. You know, the question of engagement, top down, bottom up. Bottom up does not work, honestly. Each time that we success, it was because we combine both directions. top, bottom, because we cannot imagine the resistance that we have from the bottom. That's the first comment. The second comment, we have always this question of money. It was mentioned ROE multiple times from the big players. What is the ROE? How do we justify this investment over years, 2 years, 3 years? Basically, the client wants an ROI in 3 years. But some of them, speaking about, we are working mainly for MNC, European MNC, some of them international in US, but most of the clients are MNC from Europe. So as you mentioned, the maturity is quite high, at least on the paper. Yeah. And on the report. But what we see, we saw a big change these 2 years because they are on the way to execute the promise. And how do we see that? Because they want to understand. And how do they understand? By monitoring. And the biggest project that we have currently is to start by the monitoring. But starting by the monitoring, meaning capturing data, to reveal the data, to report at the corporate, to report at the local government, just to envision at the same time the roadmap as it should be in terms of optimization. And why we request that? Just to anticipate the way they will have the return of the investment on the project. So the meaning of that is the performance is at the center, and we don't want to pay to protect the planet at the end.
Yeah, from my experience, just echo to that. From my experience, for example, 50% of my work was really to mitigate risks and also do cost savings. I'm an IT guy, but you see 50% of my work was doing cost reduction. So it's very complex. Say, hey, if you want to put extra budget for the sustainability, but I think one business operator is really how you can maybe achieve the goal. Say, hey, you use the green energy or the green with a normal price. Just give an example. I think everyone was trying to achieve that. Yesterday evening, 10 p.m., our general manager of Changshu platform, French guy, and he put a message in our WeCom, because we use WeCom, the WeChat work version, right? Say Jiangsu province, they as a province start to buy green energy from Inner Mongolia because they have a lot of solar panels as such. Then you with a very low price, and then we can buy the green energy as Jiangsu province as such. Yeah. So which is trying to say everyone was trying to make that as a normal price. So that's the business opportunity. If you are doing some business, I think that will be the business opportunity. If you can turn green as a normal thing, but you can still be green.
Also on what you say, now we have a concept which is what we call VPP. VPP is virtual power plant. But the basic idea is to say we can be strong if we work together at the scale of a region. Why? Because we will face in the next future on a variation of the cost of the energy over the time. So if we, at the scale of a region, if multiple enterprise share their needs, what they can generate in terms of energy for their solar panel, and the demand they have, we can have an overall optimization and to look at the grid and to take the energy from only what we need and when the energy is at the lowest price. And now we are developing such technology in China, but just the beginning, because it's related to the regulation of the energy generation. But we have already this kind of technology very mature in Europe and in US.
So my answer will be first one. I see that you are thinking could be the threat that if we buy something green, it will be more costly. But to me, the green IT, in the positive side, it is we are able to identify a lot of the waste through these activities. So we are doing the savings more than we are increasing the cost. That's the first reaction, I think. So maybe not directly to increase. Same as Gong Yong, Even I'm the CTO, but everybody is challenging my cost, right? So I'm very sensitive on the cost. Second thing is that in future, the green figure will be a new standard for all the IT products for sure. So the supplier already aware that they need to provide the green figure to the customer side. Then customer will choose them. You know, the supplier is not compete who is more green than the other. They are compete the cost as well. So if you are providing more green things, more costly, they will think they will lose the customer deal. So I'm not that afraid in futures they will provide a more cost effective and the green together. So that's my answer, that we will push the supplier to be more competitive enough, right? So you answer?
Yeah. So my answer is no. But why? Because you have to, I think you explained very well. You know, you want to reduce your carbon emission. So there are two possibilities. One, or actually three. One, you reduce cost and you reduce your carbon emission. Two, you reduce your carbon emission at the same price. And three, you reduce your carbon emission, but you need to pay more, right? 1, 2, 3. Of course, when you want to start, you start with the first one. That's what everybody is doing. And that's natural, okay? Then at same cost, yes, you will do the carbon emission. Now, when you need to pay money to reduce carbon emission, that's not going to work. You know, but what's going to happen? Philippe gave you the answer. The government of New York is going to tap on your shoulder and say, if you don't do it, you have a penalty. So you don't want to pay the penalty. So now they are turning this third option into the first option, because you don't want to pay the penalty. Nobody wants to pay a penalty, right? So then to avoid the penalty, it's going to be the regulation that is going to push the enterprises that say, okay, if you don't do it, you pay the penalty. So by doing it, the government will give you that money somehow to subsidize. The money is they are not taking from you, is forcing you to invest. And little by little, this option 3 will become option 1, little by little. But we'll need a push. I'll need a push. They'll need a push. Everybody will need a push. New York government already pushing them.
Suzhou had the chance to work on a project for a data center. They have the objective to reduce what I mentioned, the PUE, power usage efficiency. It's a metric, 1.2, 1.3. They were around 1.5, 1.8. They have to reduce by 1.5 as a first step. So reduce energy consumption. That was very, very simple. And if they did not do that, they double the cost of the energy by the government. But the kind of penalty that can face company who do not follow the regulation.
Thanks. Let me try to remember my question. We all hungry, right? No, I had my name is Bruno. I'm the CEO of Civeco. I have a question on AI. It's a fashion topic, right? We are using more AI. It consumes a lot of power. There was the topic raised on applications using power. We do this in our own applications for when dealing with maintenance. So when it comes to predictive maintenance, we can use AI tools. So we look at sizing of the infrastructure. Once we put the AI tool there, we need a much bigger infrastructure, much more computing power. What do you say about this? How do we deal with that? It's an open question.
AI to me is like the innovation idea for IT. All the innovation you need to invest. If you don't invest, you don't have a return for future. So it's similar logic with the innovation R&D research development. So the return will be not short term, but if you don't do that, you will lose it. To me, is that green is not something saying that we force everybody must be green and must reduce. We still will need to support the business for the more ambitions. So let's say the AI, again, it's more opportunity and we need to invest, and we consider it's an innovation domains that we need to do, not because of green that we reduce the investment on the new things coming to the market. We'll lose the opportunity. So that's my thinking.
Yeah, I can continue. I give you real life example. I like to give you real life example. So for us, sales, industrial, and R&D, they are the key for AI implementation. So let's say the advanced AI, not everyday AI like Copilot and GPT. And also we are trying to link with, green IT. Yeah. for chemical industrial, so when you are working on R&D, research and development, you need to do a lot of like chemical kind of reaction, kind of test, right? It's not something very easy thing. So we are doing that 24/7. So it's a shift. The scientists, they are doing shift. It's not the same thing like, hey, time 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. kind of work. And it's also a lot of energy and a low material use, right? So it's costly and also a lot of material, a lot of waste. Yeah. AI is not say coming, it's in practice for a lot of chemical companies, and we are also doing the study. So the easiest thing for R&D was you can reduce the number of the tests you have to do. Yeah. So with those algorithm, for example, the KNN, a lot of terms, right? So you can simulate and estimate what could be the result of that chemical level exercise. Yeah. Our peer company like Wanhua, right? They've already put that into practice. So before you need to do, for example, 100 times of tests. Now you only to do like 10 times. You reduce 90 times. For sure, that's great. Yeah. So that's for R&D. And then for industrial, so let's continue the story because just now I mentioned, say, hey, we have an energy management system, you have the data there, right? So how you do the optimization? First thing, you always have the knowledge, right? Everyone has the knowledge. When you see the data, hey, you already can do like 20% of the optimization. Then it's beyond your knowledge, you need a tool. First thing coming to you for sure is Six Sigma. Lean Six Sigma, you can adopt those up control line, low control line as such. Then you can do another 20% of optimization. So that's 40%, right? Then you have nothing to do. Then now AI is coming, right? So we are also putting there. So in the real lifetime kind of in the real lifetime kind of day-to-day work, it's not that easy. You have 100 KPI. You need to do the prioritization. You don't want to do like putting Python plus algorithm for all the KPIs. One KPI, it's a lot of time to do that. You need to test maybe 100 algorithms, then you find a best one. Then another month, you find, there's another best one. So we say 90%, there could be so kind of KPI. And we find, say, hey, in Power BI, you can also do the forecast with AI, with the average AI. Then average KPI, we use average AI to do the forecast. Then the 10%, we put into algorithm, say use Python, then you do the algorithm, find the best forecast as such, right? So that's a use case for the industrial side. You really can use algorithm to lower down your energy consumption. For sales, I can also give you a use case. So as a 2B company, so you are a supply chain kind of company, then your customer will always place order with you. So normally you have 3 orders. You have sample order, you have a normal product order, and also you have a service order. For sure, we don't have service order, they have service order. Then we have sample order. And if you are my customer, it's very tricky. Say, hey, I give you a catalog. Say, here's 10,000 of Arkema product. You can choose one. You don't know what's that. I also don't know. What you can do is, oh, hey, I can ask a question. I need something green. I need something like sticky, adhesive, or whatever, right? And let's say if you don't know what to do, then you may spend 1 hour in our website. And that's also energy consumption, right? Now we can provide you, say, hey, you ask for a natural language thing. Then we say, hey, that's the Arkema product you can choose immediately within 1 second, right? Maybe that's also green IT with AI.
Very quickly. I will give just one case. First, I love AI. It's a long story with AI because we spoke a lot about AI and did not mention today ChatGPT, but okay. I start to work on this kind of topic 40 years ago. We did not call that artificial intelligence. We have other word, but it was the same technology. We have one good case that we apply. This is our belief on the way we need to drive the building. Again, the building, we believe on what we call cognitive building. And cognitive building is a journey from the static building to the dynamic building, the simulation building, and to reach a stage of the cognitive building. Cognitive building is very simple. It's just to have a building totally automatic, to automatize the way we operate the building and to minimize the human factor, to minimize the influence in terms of performance. And we can achieve this target only by AI. And one example is, you mentioned the HVAC system. In fact, when we regulate the HVAC, it's by AI. And what we do, we predict the future. So no need to predict in 1 month, 2 months. We just to predict in the next 4 hours. And if we predict the next 4 hours, we can regulate the installation to minimize the load, to increase the level of comfort of the users, and to minimize the energy consumption. We cannot do that only with AI. Only with AI. It's a real-time processes relying on AI and the data that we capture in real time.
So I'm going to answer from the generative AI point of view. I think it's giving me nightmares for 2 reasons. The first one is that those generative AI, so ChatGPT and Kimi as well, they're free. So because they're free, the user can use them freely. And then you can use generative AI to ask what's the capital of France, which is in terms of, I mean, nothing can be less suboptimal. The amount of data processing that is required to answer that simple question that everybody can answer. But because it's free, then the user is going around and asking those silly questions. So that's my first nightmare. The second one is that OpenAI came out with Sora to generate videos. And I cannot imagine the processing power it's going to reply for people to have videos of puppies and kittens. Yeah. So these are the 2 nightmares. The bright side is that, first of all, I go back to what Philippe was saying about data center. Because those models are so big, they have to be hosted on data center. And then those data center will be extremely optimized. And because you have like 1 million people sending queries at the same time, the hardware is really optimized. And those queries actually have a smaller impact as long as they're centralized. But if you buy your own computer and you put it in your home and you run your own model, now this is again suboptimal. And the second hope is that there's a trend that's actually part of the industry is looking into smaller models. The best one being Mistral, the French model, right? French one. They're looking into a technology that's called MOE, Model of Experts. These one actually consume less powers. They are smaller, so less power to train and less power to execute. So I hope that the whole industry is going in that direction. Now, OpenAI went up with like the biggest model they can imagine, and I hope we're at a tipping point, and now we're going into LLMs that are smaller, that are going to more optimized and less consumption. So this is the bright side, but I'm still have nightmares about Sora. Yeah.
And kittens. Thank you very much to all. We are going to conclude today. I want to give you a few words about our committee. As Alex mentioned, it's a committee for decision makers in IT. It's open to CIOs, CTOs, CISOs. It's a committee that is open to everyone that is a member of the chamber. There's however, one caveat. It's a French-speaking committee. So anybody is free to join, but you have to speak French during our meetings. However, as a proof that we are not close-minded, this is why we are doing those events. Tonight was our first event, and I want to thank our speakers and all the audience for the great questions. If you want to join us, we are open. I said it again. And for people that are online, I think that that's going to stop here. For people that are in the room that still want to have questions, well, our speakers and ourselves are going to be outside with a glass of wine because obviously we are French. And so thank you to all and a big round of applause for our speakers.